Jenna, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations on this book. It's wonderful.
It's so crazy.
Yeah,
I wrote it.
Let's start from the beginning. I mean, one of the things that we learned in the book is that you've been kind of journaling for quite some time, off and on, of your life. But when did you decide that it would be best to not just sort of write a memoir of your time in the office or something like that, which I'd imagine you could sell, but actually a practical guide for people trying to become actors?
Well, shortly after The Office came out, we all got on MySpace. Does anybody remember MySpace? I'm sorry, is MySpace still happening?
I think it still exists, MySpace. But I don't know if it's actually used at all.
Well, it used to be a big blogging site. It was sort of the place. And so a number of the cast members had MySpace blogs, and we would answer questions that people sent in and communicate with fans. And I got a lot of questions about how did you get on The Office? How did your acting career work out? And so I spent about 3 months and I wrote this really long blog post about everything that I could think of, all the advice and the reality of being an actor. Because a lot of times people would ask things like, how did you get your audition for The Office? As if The Office was the first thing I'd auditioned for, and no one had seen me before in anything, so I think they thought I was just this unknown person off the bus who landed an audition for The Office. And it's just not how it happened. I didn't get on The Office until I'd been in Los Angeles struggling for 8 years. And so there were a lot of things that led up to me even being able to get the audition for The Office, let alone landing it. And then let alone it becoming a TV show. So, and I explain all of that in the book. But so I did the blog first, and the blog was really popular. And most of the time that I'm stopped on the street in New York City, especially, is for aspiring actors to tell me that they got my blog and that they still read it 7 years later. So, so I just thought to myself, I think the blog should be a whole book, because I have a lot more that I think I could say. And I go to actors' classes and workshops, and I speak for free and answer questions. And I started recording those sessions and having them transcribed. And then the stories that were most popular or most useful were the spine of this book. And then I filled it in.
It feels like, I mean, going to workshops and classes and talking about this, as well as writing the book and this blog post, it feels like you have, all of this kind of comes from a deep empathy for the struggling actor or the person who's trying to make a career as an actor. Where do you think that comes from?
I mean, I just remember being a 13-year-old girl in St. Louis, Missouri, and laying in bed awake at night, wondering how I want to do this thing. I want to be an actress. And like, how do I do it? Where do I start? I don't know anybody. I have no connections. And so I wished that I had this book. I wish that I could have someone answer all my questions. Like, even just like, how does it work? Like, what even happens? Like, what do you do when you get there?
And that's so important because, like you said, I think so many people see actors and actresses and they think of one audition that landed them this role, or this moment just, it feels like something just happened for someone to get successful in acting. And what you really go over is all of these steps that you took along the way that involves failure, that involves minor successes, that involve things that don't seem like they mean anything, but actually all sort of create a journey that led to a certain moment.
Well, I think the stories we hear the most are the magical stories.
Right.
Like, I was at the mall and someone discovered me and now I'm a movie star. Like, those stories are fun to tell and don't ever happen.
It's usually a bad thing if you're being discovered at the mall.
Yeah, this is true.
Steer clear.
But I mean, you know, I think that it all seems very otherworldly and like there's some magic to it, or that there's some it thing or it quality. But the truth is that most working actors went to school, they got training, and then through many years of persistent hard work and additional training and auditioning, they eventually got a job. And that job eventually became popular, and now you know who they are. And we tend to forget to tell or hide the struggle part. We just want people to know the like great result part as if it happened magically, but it doesn't happen magically. And so this book is sort of meant to go behind the curtain. Like, what's that in The Wizard of Oz? Like, you think it's The Wizard of Oz, but it's just like a guy behind a curtain, you know? And that's, all actors are just, they started as kids with big dreams, and then they did it. And so I just want people to know, like, you can do it too.
When you landed the role of Pam on The Office, did it feel to you like not a sudden moment of success, but like, oh yeah, I have been working up to this, and this kind of makes sense that this has come my way at this point?
When I got the job on The Office, it didn't feel like it was going to be life-changing because I could have never anticipated what would happen with it.
The pilot may not have gotten picked up, or it could have been canceled after once. Yeah, you don't know exactly. Yeah.
But what I did know was that I was in a project with the most talented people I'd ever had the privilege to work with yet. So I knew that I was part of something of very high quality with great writers and producers and really smart people and terrific actors. And so that felt really significant. Whether anybody was going to watch it, I didn't know. Whether we would ever get picked up, I didn't know. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, that answers my question a lot. I mean, I think it just goes back to what we were saying in terms of the struggle and the journey of an actor when they get, or actress, excuse me, when they get to a certain point and success happens. For most actors and actresses, that is after an extended period of time of building their resume, meeting new people, and it's not even from network. You meet these people by doing work and showing work, and that's another lesson that you kind of talk about in the book, which is work.
Yeah, I think there's this fallacy that you're supposed to network, that there's like these parties where you network with people. These parties don't exist, or I was not invited to them. Let me say that. I don't have any stories along the way, success stories of meeting someone and then that person putting me in something. All of my successes were through a very slow process of auditioning for a casting director, having them like me, call me back, not get a job. 3 months later, same casting director calls me for a different job. Maybe I get that one. That's the story of Allison Jones and The Office. She called me in for 5 years for different roles. 2-line role, a role in a miniseries that I didn't get, a role for Curb Your Enthusiasm that I didn't get.
I like
that was a tragic
story.
Audition that I talk about in the book.
Can we talk about that tragic audition?
We can talk about it.
Are you okay with talking about it?
I'm okay talking about it. Yeah. So what happened was, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Am I allowed to look at people? I feel so weird, like not connecting. I'm a connector.
Very actorly of you.
So Allison Jones called me in to do an audition for Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is an improvised show, so there's no lines. So, and then she said, I'm bringing you straight to producers being Larry David, and he's gonna read with you. He's gonna do the audition with you. And I was like, oh my God. So I had to do an improv audition with Larry David as my audition. And I got there, I was super nervous, and she was like, okay, so the situation is, you invited Larry to your kid's birthday party, and he never RSVP'd, and now you're gonna run into him in a store, and you're gonna confront him about why didn't he RSVP. I was like, great, got it. So we start, and Larry David is staring back at me, and I just froze. I just kept saying, but you didn't RSVP. But you didn't RSVP, but you just didn't RSVP. Like, I didn't offer anything new. I didn't take the scene anywhere interesting. It was a total bomb. Like, I failed. It was awful. But that's not the worst part, everybody. Failing in your audition with Larry David was not the sad part of this story. So what happened was, after the audition was over, I misinterpreted a gesture from Larry David. I thought he was like gesturing for a hug, goodbye, which is odd, but also not that odd because I feel like people in LA like hug hello and goodbye all the time. So
he doesn't seem like much of a hugger.
No, he doesn't, which is very odd. But I was like, well, I'm not gonna not hug him goodbye, like he's being so friendly. And like, I hugged Allison, you know, because I'd known her, so I hug her, and then he made a gesture. I'm like, oh, okay. And then just as I was getting ready to hug him, I realized he was gesturing for the door. He was not gesturing for, he was like, thanks for coming in. Not being like, thanks for coming in.
So did you go through with the hug? I don't remember.
I was so close that I
had to finish.
Well, then I had to then I started to recoil, but then he saw that I was going to hug him, so he was gonna and then we did like this thing, and it.
Oh, I love it.
Like the, are we hugging, are we not hugging sort of thing. And I didn't know how to get out of it, so I just like did one of those and left.
When you left, did you imagine the conversation that was taking place about you after you left the room?
I was seriously tortured about it for years. Years.
I could only imagine.
And
have you ever run into him again?
No.
No?
No, I haven't.
Would you bring it up?
I don't know. I just hope he forgot. Or what if he's like, you're the weird hug girl from the audition? And I've also wondered, will that bit ever show up on a Curb Your Enthusiasm? Like the...
Oh, yeah.
That...
Has it not? I feel like it
maybe if it has, I'm gonna take credit for it.
Stolen.
Inspired by me.
Stolen from you. And another like wonderful early impression you had though from a working actress was Molly Shannon, who gave you a great bit of advice as well. You sort of lost a job to go talk to her, and she basically told you that it takes forever. Keep going.
Yeah, I was working as a transcriber at a media event because I'm a typist, and weirdly. And so I'd work as a transcriber when I was early on, like my day job was a transcriber. So I was transcribing a media event that she was at, and after the events, after the press conferences, there would be a party, quote unquote, party with the press and the actors and the producers, and the transcribers were allowed to go to the parties if we got our work done in time. And so the Saturday Night Live party that Molly was going to be at was really early in the day. So I pretended like I was sick so that I could leave my transcribing job early and sneak into the SNL party because I really wanted to meet them. I did that. So I did. I pretended to be sick. My boss said, oh my gosh, please go home, come back tomorrow. And so I went to the party, and I sort of hovered around where Molly Shannon was. And I went up to her and I said, Molly, I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I just wanted you to know that I really admire you, and I'm new in town, and it's been hard, and I don't know, I just really admire you, and I don't know if you have any advice, I'd love to hear it. And, you know, looking back, it would have been totally appropriate for her to be like, oh, thanks so much, and say goodbye. Yeah. Or to be like, I'm sorry, who are you? And what do you mean you're not supposed to? Like, I was crashing the party, you know? And so she could have been rude to me, and it would have been correct for her to do it. But she didn't. She, like, looked at me in the eyes. She grabbed me by the shoulders, and she said, yeah, my advice is don't give up. Okay, just whatever you do. I know it's hard, but I was knocking around New York City for 10 years before I got my job on Saturday Night Live. 10 years, okay? It takes a long time, so just stick with it, and everything's gonna be okay. And it was like, I couldn't believe it. It was so kind, and it was so honest, and for years and years and years, I held on to that advice. And I told my mom, and I would get upset. It would be like, your anniversary, year 4, nothing's happening in LA. I'm crying to my mom on the phone, and she would just say, baby, remember what Molly Shannon said? It took her 10 years. It took Molly Shannon 10 years. And you know what I mean? That's Molly Shannon. If it takes Molly Shannon 10 years, like, who am I to expect it's gonna happen for me in 2, right? So I really that really set my head right. And then, crazy enough, 10 years later, I had just starred in my first big studio movie. It was called Walk Hard, and there were a bunch of Saturday Night Live people in it, and Molly Shannon came to the premiere, and I walked up to her, and I was like, Molly Shannon, 10 years ago, this happened. And she was like, oh my God, I told you, see, look where you are, look at this. 10 years ago, you were transcribing my media event, and now look, we're at a Hollywood party, and you're the star of a movie. And we took a picture, and it was the greatest thing ever.
Some of the other pieces of advice, well, one thing that you say in the book that I really took to heart that I love, which is be a joiner, which is don't sit back and think that you're better than everything. Be a joiner, join a theater group, be into films, do everything that you can to take part in stuff, right?
Yeah, here's the big part of the book is that no one hands you a career in anything, really, but especially in Hollywood, because there's a very disproportionate amount of jobs versus talented people. Also, if you're not making it or if you're not getting forward, it's not because you're not good. It just means that you're not lining up with the opportunities that are right. And the way to line up with those opportunities is by joining and doing everything, by being in classes, by creating your own web series, by saying yes to somebody's short film, even if it means all you're doing on that short film is making the props. Even if whatever it means, you have to be out there working with and creating with other artists like you, because that's how you make the connections.
That's how you network.
Yeah, that's the networking. The network isn't going to a party and dazzling someone with your conversation.
Yeah. Networking is showing people that you can work.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it is. That's what networking is. Networking is doing good work often, consistently, over a long period of time, and getting a reputation for doing just that.
Yeah. Another piece of the book that I really love is how you're supposed to conduct yourself on set, which is something that I think a lot of people don't actually understand or know, because they get to set for the first time and they feel like they can sort of interact or talk to anybody or get advice. And it's like, because of the way a set is structured or what acting looks like, it doesn't look like it's a lot of concentration and work, and you can kind of maybe interfere with people. Like the Eddie Murphy, Will Ferrell kind of comparison that you talk about.
Yeah, I talk about this because when I speak to acting students, I think this really resonates, so I put it in the book. So I remember I was at a party and there was this guy, and he had recently worked on an Eddie Murphy movie, and he was like, listen to this. He had been an extra in an Eddie Murphy movie. He was like, check this out. The AD gets us aside and is like, do not look Mr. Murphy in the eye. Do not speak to Mr. Murphy on set. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? And first of all, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if Eddie Murphy says this or if it was just somebody trying to look important by bossing around the extras. I have no idea. So I say in the book, let's just pretend it's true. Let's just pretend that Eddie Murphy doesn't want you to look him in the eye or talk to him when he's working. I think a lot of people would think like, what a jerk. So cut to, I've worked with Will Ferrell a lot. And I worked with him on this big movie, Blades of Glory, where he had all these ice skating stunts and comedy bits and elaborate costumes and craziness. And I had a small role, and he had the lead role. And I would observe that every time he left his trailer, until they said action, someone was talking to him. Hey, Will, when are you going to be on SNL? Cowbell, Will. Hey, can you tape something for my son? It's going to be his birthday, and I was just wondering if you could. And then just like constant conversation, looking at him. Can I get you a water? Do you need anything? Are you good with the sides? And I was watching it, and I was thinking, oh my God, how is he not having a breakdown right now? Like, how is he concentrating? How does he remember his lines? What is happening to Will Ferrell? Now, let me just say, Will Ferrell did not care. Will Ferrell is super friendly. He was able to engage with people, and then they yell action, and he's amazing. And I just thought to myself, I would not be able. I'm somewhat shy, especially when I'm working. I'm a little bit more focused. I would lose it. So then that made me think back to the Eddie Murphy story I had heard a couple years earlier. And I thought to myself, if I were starring in a movie that someone had put like $30 million into, the movie is riding on my shoulders, I'm playing multiple characters, I'm playing like the mom, the dad, the son, as Eddie Murphy does, and I have to remember improvs I did in one scene when I was the mom so that I can do them again as the dad when they move the cameras and I'm in this latex makeup. You know what I would say? I would be like, don't look at me. Don't talk to me. I got a lot on my mind, and I don't have time for chit-chat. And that also made me think of like an Olympic athlete. Mm-hmm. You would not go up and ask an Olympic athlete to make a video for your son's birthday as they were going out to do their Olympic uneven bars event. You would not, and no one would think that would seem inappropriate, and it wouldn't be weird if the Olympic athlete was like, what is happening? Acting is a job, and it requires a focus, and not everybody needs it, but some people do. And what I talk about in the book is that as artists, it is not our job to judge what other artists need. And as long as needs are communicated with kindness and respect, they should be respected. And I think that that's important also because when you are the artist, it can be really hard to find your voice and ask for what you need to do your best work. And so if there is just this agreement to respect one another and not judge one another and not compete with one another, and not gossip about one another, then you create this really great, fun working environment.
That's so often where I think explosions on set come from, is when the needs are not communicated early on, and eventually someone has a moment that's like, I don't like this, and then it turns really tense. But if it had just been kind of communicated or respected very early on, that tends to not happen.
And I think that's the artist's responsibility to have a self-awareness about the things that they need. So I don't know if it's a big dramatic scene where you have to cry, and you go to your director and you say, listen, I don't mean to be difficult, but if everyone could be very quiet when I come on set for this scene, I'm going to be listening to some sad music, and just no one please ask me any questions because I just did some work so that I can cry buckets. That's great. And then there's like a conversation happening. But what's uncool is if you walk on set with your earphones and blah, 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 and someone talks to you and you're like, don't effing talk to me, I'm in a moment. So do you know what I mean? It's like
You're interrupting my process.
Yes, exactly. So process and needs just have to be communicated. And then you have a really great artistic environment.
One of the things that I was really taken with your book is, right now we're in this major conversation about sexual harassment in the industry, and you talk a little bit about sort of predatory behavior in the industry, especially one thing you have a whole sort of bit in the book that talks about, don't get roped into being a sex worker. Because, and it's, somewhat played for laughs in your writing, but you are also talking about an industry where, women can be treated like cattle and are preyed upon a lot of the time. Do you mind talking about that?
Well, and men too, by the way. I share a story in my book about a man who accidentally took a job in a softcore porn film because they weren't straight up with him about what the role was, and he backed out because he auditioned, and then they weren't sending him the full script, and then the fitting didn't involve a lot of clothes, so he was very confused. It's happening to men as well. But what I talk about in the book in general is that if you're in a situation where you feel unsafe or uncomfortable, to speak out. And that can be difficult because sometimes the person making you feel uncomfortable or who is harassing you is your boss, who you would tell. So you have other avenues. You can talk to the Screen Actors Guild Union, a union representative, an agent, other actors, but speak out. And what I'm hoping is happening now is that we're creating a new culture where actors and actresses and anybody at all in any job who is feeling that kind of harassment can speak out and be believed and be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question right here?
Hi.
I'm a current second-year acting student at NYU and thinking about the future. And I'm wondering, at what point in your career did you feel you were able to start doing artistically rewarding work rather than just commercially rewarding work, like work to just pay the bills?
When I got cast on The Office.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And I talk about that in the book. So after 6 years, I was earning my living as an actor. So that was a big milestone, which was that I could get rid of my day job. But it wasn't until then there was like that 2-year period where I was making it by saying 3 lines on this show and 4 lines on that show. And when you're the person who says 4 lines, they're usually not the most interesting 4 lines. They're like, yes, I did see blood on the suspect. It was around midnight. Excuse me, I have to go. People always have to go when they're being interviewed by the police. Have you ever noticed that? They're very busy. So it's like parts like that. And I did start to ask myself, like, okay, well, I did it. I'm a working actor, but is this it? This is it. I just do this. And then I got really lucky, and I got like an amazing role. So that's like the first step is, can you just earn your living as an actor? And then the second step, then I think the next milestone is finding that creatively inspired work. And my advice would be try to do as much theater as you can, because that always does it for me.
You also made your own film as well in like 2002, 2003, or maybe a few years later, excuse me?
I did, and that's other great advice too, which is create your own work. If you're not getting the roles that are really lighting you up artistically, cast yourself. even if it turns out like crap, it doesn't matter, like, because the process of doing it will feed you as an artist.
Oh, that was also something that I loved in the book that you said is basically like everything you do is going to be bad, so just do it anyway to finish it.
Yes, be a finisher.
Paraphrasing, by the way.
No,
Sorry.
that's it. No, that's exactly it. Like, if you decide to put on a one-act play with your friends, it's going to be awful. Okay, it's going to be horrible. So was everybody else's first play that they put on with their friends. But you need to do it because you won't get better until you do it, learn all the lessons from it, and then do the next thing, and then do the next thing, and then do the next thing. So don't let it being bad stop you. Write a really shitty script. Finish it, though. Just write your first bad script. Nope, nobody just wrote maybe like a few people. Again, like you hear about the few people that just this amazing manuscript came pouring out of them. But that's not really what it is. It's about slowly building the muscles and slowly getting better.
Next question. Oh, hey.
Hi.
Hi. You get to come stand so close.
No, I'm so excited. Obviously, The Office has a lot of passionate fans. I'm one of them. People called me Pam in high school because we had so many similarities with character. And now I just found out you were a transcriptionist, and I'm a transcriptionist too, so add that on the list. But I wanted to know what is your most craziest or your most unique fan experience?
My craziest or most unique fan experience. Well, I had like a weird sort of pen pally experience with a fan early on, and it was a guy who asked for advice. He was a Jim, and there was a Pam in his office, and he just wanted to know what he should do. And I gave him a little advice, and then I got a letter back that was like, I took your advice, and look, here we are. And it was like a picture of the two of them, and it worked out, and then they sent me an invitation to their wedding. They got married. Isn't that amazing? I couldn't go, but I sent them a gift. So that was sort of sweet.
That's a really happy ending to that story.
Yes, it was, yes.
The pessimist in me kind of wanted the next letter to be like, I took your advice. She said no.
I know, no. And then they were like, he took a job in Philly, and she's really upset about it. No.
You just kept getting updates up until...
And then I was like, wait a second.
Next question.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a working actress in New York, and maybe you kind of have already answered this question, but what would be like your advice to someone that is a struggling actress in New York?
How long have you been out here, or how long have you been doing it?
3 years here and like about 4 back home.
Where's back home?
Milan, Italy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the Milan, Italy
Oh, me
acting
either.
scene. I'm going to be honest with you. So 3 years, you're just starting out, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and you are absolutely perfect exactly how you are. Just keep doing everything you're doing. Keep going to classes and getting better and better and better so that people can't ignore you. That's what Steve Martin always says. Be so good they can't ignore you. And then you just have to keep going. That's my advice. You just have to keep going and going and going. Remember all those sports games where somebody wins like in the 9th inning? That might be your career. You might be a person who wins in the 9th inning. You don't know. And so you can't win the game if you leave the field. So just stay on the field, keep going. It'll happen. Don't give up. Okay, I'm Molly Shannoning you right now. You see?
I'll see you in 10 years.
Okay, good. See me in 10 years. Find me in 10 years. 7 more years. That's it.
I think we have time for one more question. Right, you, yes.
Hello, what was it like working with the cast of Office when you guys weren't being filmed? And do you have a favorite episode?
Oh, wow. It was an amazing, everything you think it was is exactly what it was. We were joking around, we were hanging out, we were eating snacks, we were each other's best friends. The fantasy is real. I'm here to tell you that is all real. We had a great time. And it extended to our crew as well. So we're very close with our crew members, and it was just camaraderie and fun and amazing Halloween parades on Halloween, or just, around. Because it was a job where we were in the same room together every single day, all day for 9 years. But then of course there's, people get grouchy and grumpy or things happen. It was a really intense bonding, and someone's parent might die or someone gets divorced, and we were just all there for each other through ups and downs, and just truly good friends. And we still are today. And my favorite episode, I love, why can't I remember the name of it? The dinner party, where we all go to Michael's
my favorite.
apartment.
It's not
for dinner.
It's such it's like a Mike Lee movie. It's like not even really in the office. It's so intensely awkward.
I know. And the things that would make us laugh the hardest are not things that I think maybe translated on the show, but the scene where Steve is showing us his flat screen TV that he's mounted. We couldn't get through it. We could not. And there's like a bloopers reel of it. But it went on for an hour. We could not. Every time he pushed it back against the wall, we would lose it. And I mean, it was ridiculous. We could not get through the filming that scene. And recently, last year, I was doing a spot on a TV show. I was doing a guest spot on a show. And they showed me into my trailer. And they had a very tiny television set mounted. It was so ridiculous. It was smaller than that screen right there. It was strange. It was so strange. And I took a picture of it and I emailed it to the whole cast because it reminded me of the time that we couldn't stop laughing because of the tiny TV on Michael's wall.
Jenna, congratulations on the book. It's on shelves now, right?
People can pick it today.
It's out today?
It's in bookstores today.
It's a really wonderful companion guide for people.
I'm freaked out. I'm gonna stalk bookstores today and just like look at it. And I might rearrange shelves to give it,
Truly, honestly, if you are a young actress, you should really pick up this book. It's an incredible book for young actors and young artists trying to make it.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's for anyone who is an aspiring actor, a struggling actor. Give it to your parents so that they don't ask you so many dumb questions. And also for parents who want to understand their actor-artist kids, I think it's really good. And then also just for anybody who's like, what is it like being an actor? Just with a curiosity about it. And there's a lot of technical reference information in it. Like, I tell funny stories about how I started out as an extra. That's how I got my SAG card. So I tell a lot of great stories about my life as an extra. And then I go into great detail about how to sign up to be an extra and what it takes and the pay scale. But I tried to put all that boring information like in a box. So if you're not wanting to be an actor, just skip all the boxes. Unless you really want to know the best websites for self-submissions and how much they cost and how often you need to update them, which is great information for the aspiring actor, you can just skip the boxes.
I thought that was so cool, though, that was in the book. I wasn't expecting it to be, that detailed in terms of how to do these things. It is really a practical guide.
It's a practical guide. For the working actor, it's a practical guide. For everyone else, skip the boxes, read the stories.
Jenna Fischer, everybody. Give a round of applause.